One of the cases that we filed earlier this year that's certainly a very important part of our mission currently involves trying to ensure that the state of Maryland will process applications from poor people for the kinds of benefits that really do connect directly with their ability to survive and to keep their families together. There are a number of different public benefits that are available through the state and federal government. A primary one is what used to be called food stamps. It now has a different catchy name, SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. But folks do generally still think of it as food stamps. It's a federally funded program that I think all of the states do provide through state administration. There's also a temporary cash assistance program for families who literally have no income at the current time. And there's also Medicaid, which is funded both by the state and federal government and provides medical coverage to very, very low income families and people with disabilities. We have filed suit to try to ensure that Maryland will process the applications for those benefits in a timely way to provide that assistance to the families who need it most in Maryland within the time constraints of the law, which are very reasonable. Typically they have to take the application information, process the applications, and tell the family whether they're eligible or not within 30 days. A very reasonable period of time, but in fact the state, in the case of the two plaintiffs in the case, took well over 60 days, and in fact there was no end in sight for those two families until they filed their lawsuit, and we intervened and asked the state to find their applications and do something with them. They were lost in piles, I think, basically because of the overload on the workers who process those applications for the state. And the reason that there is such a tremendous overload is that the state has not provided the level of staffing that's needed, not provided the level of technology that's needed for nearly a decade to process those applications in a timely fashion. And so the situation has gotten worse and worse over a period of the last 8 or 9 years. And then, of course, with the economic crisis, it suddenly became even worse because the number of families, number of poor families, number of newly poor families applying for those benefits spiked. And the state was already in dire straits in terms of the staffing to process the applications. So things went from bad to worse very quickly in late 2008. So we filed suit to try to get a grip on the situation, try to make sure that the state paid attention to that group in the population and that they didn't suffer disproportionately from the financial crisis that we're all currently facing. That they didn't go from having to wait an extra 30 days to get their food stamps to having to wait an extra 60 or 90 or 100 days to get their food stamps. And so that litigation is ongoing. We have a trial scheduled in December, and we're very hopeful that the court will rule that the state does have to provide the resources, both human resources and technological resources, to get these what have been described as brutal needs benefits to people on the street, to Maryland families who are very poor, who've just recently lost a job, to get those resources to them as quickly as the state can do it, and definitely within the timeframes that the federal and state law require.